Hello again, welcome back to the channel. My name is Harry and today we're going to be tackling the GAMSAT. For anyone that's seen the intro video, you'll know that one of the things that I wanted to talk about was this long exam, which is part of many applications to graduate entry medicine. And it is also the entry exam to all of the graduate entry medical programs here in Ireland. This beginner's guide will hopefully be a starting point for many of you who are just thinking about doing this exam and don't really know how to start preparing. So, tip number one is having a routine. Now, this can be as little as 2 hours a week, but it's just the foundation and you can build on this as you go. I'm filming this, for example, in June and there's 3 months to the next GAMSAT. They normally sit in September and March. So there's plenty of time to steadily build the amount that you're studying. It's very important to not lose motivation, which is why I'm saying starting with so little study is not an issue. You can build on that as you get closer to the exam. And then if you sit more than one, you can have the same routine. A lot of people sitting the GAMSAT might either be students or people working full time. And so how you use this time will need to be flexible depending on your situation. The flip side of that is that you need to try and have discipline. So if you say you're going to do 5 hours in a week, you need to allocate that time and try and stick to it. One very popular study technique that worked for me to tackle the questions in stints was the Pomodoro technique, which is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. Tip number 2 is really important. Taking a sample test for each of the sections. These can be timed or untimed. I would recommend just timing yourself, but even if you don't, maybe use a stopwatch and leave it across the room, just so that at the end, when you finished all the questions, even if it's in your own time, you get an idea for how long it's taking compared to how long in the actual exam you would have had for that amount of questions. Acer, who create the GAMSAT exams, have some sample papers on their website. They're a really good place to start before you think about investing in other resources, etc. Taking these exams from the outset will help you decide what sections are probably going to need more attention and what you feel more comfortable with. These are only one set of samples. The more questions you do, the better you'll get, the quicker you'll get, and that's where time becomes a significant factor. So, tip number 3 is getting additional material. Now, the GAMSAT, in my opinion, is as much about exam technique as anything else. And so doing as many past papers as you can for each of the sections is probably the best way you're going to prepare. For example, if you had a month left, if we were now in August and the exam was in September, I would solely be focusing on the exam papers. Now that's just me. I know some other people might go about it in a different way, but I prioritize the exam papers as being the most important resource that you will have. And because of that, it probably is worth getting some additional material. When you're buying sample papers, what's really important is that they have those answer keys and also reasoning behind those answers. Sometimes with difficult GAMSAT questions, it can be hard to deduce why they arrived at a particular answer and not the other. A lot of the answers can seem like reasonable ones, so it's important to have that logic so that you can learn from every answer that you're putting down. Now, what material you use is entirely up to you. Some people also choose to go to courses. They can be useful, but they are very expensive. So what I would advise doing is steering clear of a full course until you've at least sat the GAMSAT one time, and then maybe reassess where you're at. If you really feel like there's a lot of improvement that you can get from going to a course, then you can maybe look at that. But for your first attempt, just get a sense of the exam. So that leads me on to point number 4, which is really important again, and it is online groups and past students of the GAMSAT. For example, I joined a GAMSAT group on Facebook. They put up some sample questions, people advertised their tutoring, and there was even material that was available for people to purchase. This is really useful because it might be secondhand and it might be affordable to get some past papers or questions from other people who might have them available there. And as far as students of the GAMSAT, I realised that not everyone will necessarily know someone who has sat the GAMSAT, but I would definitely recommend, if you do, reaching out to them. They're so helpful. A friend of mine's sister who sat the GAMSAT was incredibly helpful to me, and anytime I had a question, they were more than willing to answer it. So one of the best resources that you can have is past students. The comment section of this video can also be a resource for you if you have questions and you want to put them down there. Hopefully either other GAMSAT students that watch this video can answer down below, or I will myself try and help out in any way that I can. We know how daunting this exam can be, so I will do my absolute best, and I'm sure everyone else will, to help each other out. My final tip for today is sit the exam at the earliest possible date. Even if you're going in with a minimal amount of study preparation, it will just give you an idea of where you're at. You can gauge what sections maybe you're strong at and the ones that you need to improve on, and where to go from there. Even doing practice exams, you're not in the real exam, so you maybe don't feel quite the same pressure. Sometimes that can work to someone's advantage as well. They work well under pressure, they can maybe get the questions done a little bit quicker. Having that experience under your belt is going to be crucial if you need to sit subsequent GAMSATs. If someone told me they had a month to prep for the GAMSAT, should they bother going to sit it? I would say yes. That experience is incredibly valuable. I do realise this is an expensive exam and it's a big investment to be continually sitting the GAMSAT. What I will say is that it will be incredibly valuable to have one GAMSAT under your belt when you're then prepping for subsequent GAMSATs. And you never know, you might come out with a result that surprises you. That certainly was the case for me, and I only have ended up sitting the exam once. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I do have plans in the next couple of weeks to look at each of the individual sections of the GAMSAT and put out videos with tips on how to approach each of those sections. If anyone else who has already sat the GAMSAT has any other tips for people, please feel free to leave them down in the comments. And also, if you have any questions, throw them in the comments as well, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. See you next time.